The 328-Day Odyssey, Unpacking Godfrey Binaisa's Accidental Presidency and the Crucible of Post-Amin Uganda. The Godfrey Binaisa Presidency, an 11-month episode stretching from June 20, 1979, to May 12, 1980, remains a pivotal, yet often overshadowed, chapter in Uganda's turbulent political history. Cradled precariously between the downfall of the brutal dictator Idi Amin and the controversial return of Milton Obote, Binaisa's tenure, a brief but intense 328-day rule, was less a period of stable governance and more a crucible of competing political and military factions. His time in office is essential for understanding the roots of Uganda's continuing struggle for national consensus, a struggle that saw him branded the accidental president, and culminated in his swift removal by a military coup. This deep, informative dive into the Godfrey Binaisa era explores the complex environment of post-Amin Uganda, the precarious balancing act of the Uganda National Liberation Front, UNLF, the key internal conflicts, and the ambitious, though ultimately doomed, policy he championed, the umbrella system. Ascending to the crucible, the UNLF and the accidental leader. Godfrey Lule Binaisa, a highly regarded Queen's Counsel and Uganda's first post-independence Attorney General, returned from exile in the United States following the Uganda-Tanzania war that toppled Idi Amin in April 1979. The country he returned to was in ruins, economically shattered, politically fractured, and still heavily reliant on the Tanzanian military presence. The initial post-Amin government, led by Professor Yusuf Lule, lasted only a precarious 68 days before he was dismissed by the powerful, albeit unelected, legislative body, the National Consultative Council, NCC, the supreme governing organ of the Uganda National Liberation Front, UNLF. Lule's downfall, largely due to accusations of unilateral decision-making and tribalism, created a power vacuum. It was into this vacuum that the 60-year-old Binaisa, a compromise candidate seen as politically less threatening and more amenable to the NCC, was elevated to the presidency on June 20, 1979. His ascension was, by all accounts, an accident of circumstance, a choice of last resort by a deeply divided ruling coalition. This accidental president was immediately confronted with Herculean tasks, restoring basic law and order amidst widespread looting and lawlessness in Kampala, rehabilitating a collapsed economy, and, most critically, navigating the deep-seated rivalries within the UNLF that had just deposed his predecessor. The key pillars of the 328-day rule: security, economy, and the umbrella. Binaisa's brief but significant 328-day rule was defined by three major, interconnected challenges. 1. The perilous security situation. The most immediate and existential challenge was the security vacuum. The Uganda National Liberation Army, UNLA, the military wing of the UNLF, was a composite of various exile groups with different loyalties, regional biases, and levels of discipline. Despite the presence of thousands of stabilizing Tanzanian troops, Kampala and its environs remained violent, with the new Ugandan forces often contributing to the problem through indiscipline and looting. Binaisa's attempts to assert presidential control over the military became his most fatal error. The most powerful military figure was the Army Chief of Staff, Brigadier David Oyet Ajok, a staunch loyalist of former President Milton Obote. Sensing a growing threat to his own political standing, and seeking to curb the growing influence of the Obote allied faction, President Binaisa attempted a bold, yet ultimately self-defeating, move. He attempted to deploy the formidable Brigadier Oyet Ajok out of the country, naming him as ambassador to Algeria in May 1980. This executive action, a direct challenge to the military power base, instantly triggered the downfall of his government. 2. Crafting the Ekigaali umbrella ideology. Seeking to overcome the deep partisan divisions that plagued the UNLF and threatened the fragile post-Amin Uganda stability, Binaisa championed a novel political concept. He sought to introduce a one-party, non-partisan system he termed Ekigaali, or the umbrella political system. The core idea was for all Ugandans to contest the promised general elections under a single, united political platform, thereby eliminating the sectarian and often divisive party politics of the past. It was an ambitious, and arguably idealistic, effort to promote inclusiveness and national unity. The lasting significance of this ideology is that it was later adopted and refined by Yoweri Museveni and his National Resistance Movement, NRM, as the movement system upon taking power in 1986. By proposing the umbrella, Binaisa directly challenged the traditional political parties, especially the dominant Uganda People's Congress, UPC, which was positioning itself for the return of Milton Obote. This move further alienated powerful elements within the UNLF and the military, who saw it as an obstacle to their pre-planned political future. 3. Economic and diplomatic engagement. On the economic front, Binaisa's government faced the arduous task of national economic rehabilitation. His administration made diplomatic efforts to secure aid and investment to revive sectors decimated by Amin's misrule. Early on, he addressed a rally in Kampala to announce the formal dismissal, with disgrace, of former Field Marshal Idi Amin from the country's armed forces. Diplomatically, he also had to navigate the complex relationship with Tanzania's President Julius Nyerere, whose troops provided the ultimate security guarantee for the regime. Binaisa's political moves, particularly the attempt to reshuffle his cabinet to demote rivals and promote supporters, consistently put him at odds with the NCC, the body to which he owed his position. He was constantly reminded that his power was delegated, not inherent. The coup d'état, the end of the 328-day rule. The confrontation over Brigadier Oit Ajok proved to be the point of no return. On May 10, 1980, just 328 days after he was sworn in, a military coup was launched. Troops loyal to Ajok seized the state radio station in Kampala. The coup was spearheaded by the Military Commission, a powerful faction within the UNLF. The key figures in this commission were Paulo Mwanga, who served as chairman, Yoweri Museveni, then deputy chairman and leader of the Uganda Patriotic Movement, UPM, and the very same Brigadier Oit Ajok. The Military Commission swiftly proclaimed the ouster of President Binaisa, who was at his official residence in Entebbe. The commission, under the effective control of Paulo Mwanga, assumed the powers of the president. The coup was seen by many as a carefully orchestrated maneuver by Obote loyalists, like Oit Ajok and Mwanga, to clear the path for Obote's return from exile and victory in the upcoming general elections. Binaisa's attempt to assert civilian authority over the military had failed, marking a decisive shift in power back to the army-aligned politicians. Legacy and aftermath. A precedent for instability. The Godfrey Binaisa presidency is a microcosm of the political instability that gripped Uganda in the aftermath of Idi Amin's tyranny. His time in office highlighted the fatal flaw in the UNLF government. It was an unstable coalition, an elite bargain of convenience rather than a unified political entity. His 328-day rule set a dangerous precedent. A civilian president could be summarily dismissed by the Military Commission for attempting to assert independence from military and political patrons. This event cemented the idea that true power lay with the armed factions, not the civilian leadership. The subsequent election, managed by Paulo Mwanga and won by Milton Obote's UPC in a process widely viewed as rigged, led directly to Yoweri Museveni launching a guerrilla rebellion, the Museveni Bush War, that would ultimately lead to his own presidency in 1986. Godfrey Binaisa, the accidental president and proponent of the umbrella ideology, passed the baton to a military-dominated regime, ushering in another chapter of civil conflict. His story remains a crucial educational marker for understanding the cyclical nature of political turmoil in the region, where ambitious attempts at national unity often succumb to the overwhelming force of military and factional power. The 328-day Odyssey was short, but its consequences, the return of Obote and the subsequent Bush War, were profound, shaping the country for decades to come.